former AEW and current NXT star Ethan Page may have just taken a shot at All Elite Wrestling in a recent interview. We're going to take a look at exactly what Ethan Page had to say about his departure from AEW, the differences between that company and being in NXT, and also why this aligns with other criticisms we've heard about All Elite Wrestling. We're also going to talk about a WWE Hall of Famer who is going to be at Money in the Bank in Toronto to potentially deliver some Stratus faction. All of that much more coming up in this video, so be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. So as we know, Ethan Page made his NXT debut just a few weeks ago, or actually just a few months ago, and he attacked Trick Williams. He was then part of a big match for the NXT Championship, and one of the things that became clear was like NXT was pushing him as a pretty big name, a pretty big star, and a pretty prominent presence on their show. And recently, he had a chance to talk about NXT and also some differences between being in NXT and being in AEW. Here's what Ethan Page had to say on Talkin' Shop recently. Pretty crazy. I went from somewhere that was so chaotic and unorganized to a place that, I'm still learning because I'm still so new here, but this is a machine and it's incredible. It feels good to not feel like I have to do everything myself. To have people that want to see me succeed is kind of mind-blowing. So there's a few bits from that quote to kind of get into. First, we have to talk about the chaotic comment that he mentioned there. This is no secret, right? When you are comparing AEW to WWE as far as the company, the infrastructure, WWE is just better and more built out than AEW. That is just the real truth, trademark. But, and the reason for that is, like, WWE's been around for a long, long time. Like, they have been at the top of the game for professional wrestling for over 40 years at this point. Like, they have been the top dogs. They have been an industry leader. And with that comes experience. With that comes growing pains that they've already gone through. And they have had the opportunity to build out HR departments, build out these different mechanisms for training, for writing, and systems that work. Like, WWE has created systems that work. And they've had the time to figure out what works for them and build out like mechanisms to adapt as the time rolls on. And AEW has been around for 5 years at this point. They don't have that. And people underestimate like how long it takes to build those out. So it is no surprise, and it should be no surprise, that AEW is not as organized as WWE. Now, as far as like it being chaotic, this is not a new thing. I even heard through the grapevine from someone who used to work in production in AEW that it got very unorganized and very messy right before they left. So it's not surprising. I think we've heard this in other comments as well as the old anecdote is Tony Khan used to be very available to wrestlers, and it was a lot easier to have that when they were in Jacksonville, when they were in Daly's place, when, things were just starting out. But over time, obviously the show has expanded. They have 3 shows now they have to produce weekly. They also have, travel to organize. There's a lot of logistics that go into planning a professional wrestling show, let alone a weekly brand, a weekly product that is on the road like AEW is. And Tony Khan has definitely been less available to talent, according to all these reports. Tony Khan has been, there are other people who've kind of stepped in. They've tried to build out these systems to find what works, and it's going to take time. These are part of the growing pains we've, that are just going to happen for any company. People act like 5 years is enough time to have all of this figured out. And that's just not the case. It is going to take a while for AEW, just from an infrastructure standpoint, to be, comparable to WWE as far as their internal operations. something as massive as putting on a wrestling show, like you're never gonna figure that out, even in just like a year or two. Like that's just not gonna happen. Especially when you consider how fast AEW has grown, how they've like outperformed the expectation. Like the expectations, I believe, if reports are to be believed, back in 2019 was for like Dynamite to be doing 500,000 viewers, and they would have been happy. They being the network would have been happy with that. But obviously, things went in a completely different direction, and now they've built up like so much trust and goodwill as one of the leading shows on Wednesday nights. So like it was always going to be this, like especially considering how fast they've grown. And the reality is it's not perfect. Like we've seen. I mean, you want to talk about like the imperfections? Like let's talk about the CM Punk stuff, right? Like that is the biggest indicator that AEW does not have the internal operational structure built out, to handle a lot of these situations. Like, or at least they didn't in 2022 and 2023. Otherwise, that stuff would not have been allowed to linger and go on for as long as it did. Obviously, I know that it's a little bit more complicated question mark than that, but I mean, it is what it is. Like, there is a lot of truth to if they had some of the internal operations figured out at that point, I think it would have mitigated some of the things that we saw. But, for wrestlers like Ethan Page, like another good thing that, he talked about was like in NXT, he feels like, he has the support that he needs in order to succeed. And he feels supported in that nature. And people want to see him succeed. Whereas, he kind of indirectly kind of said like, in AEW, I kind of had to do everything myself. And the results were what they were. Like Ethan Page was not being used on television nearly as much as he probably should have been. And he, like I've said it before, I think he is a spectacular talent. And it was probably a good thing for him to go to NXT. And it's not just because, NXT and WWE in general, they offer so much support as far as like helping you with promo, not helping, like giving you good promos. Well, giving you promos to work with, laying out matches, having that structure that I talked about earlier on built out, right? You have those advantages that just are not there yet in AEW. And in AEW, a lot of the talent that really succeed there are talent who, number one, like kind of don't necessarily need or want that support. Like Moxley's a really good example of this. I'm sure there have been many times where Moxley's like worked together with people on his promos or things like that. But for a large part, like he wanted to go to a place where he felt like he had more say and creative input into what he was doing. And that is not a bad thing, especially when you look at some of the best things that AEW has done. Like Moxley is one of the best things about the show. MJF, like he's one of the best things about the show. The Hangman Page Elite storyline that is still going on is like been one of the best stories in all of professional wrestling. So like there is a give and take to that. And even in WWE, a lot of their scripted stuff, it works right now. A lot of it doesn't. It's that give and take. And I think it's depends on like a personality. It depends on like what that talent needs in that specific time. Some are going to need, or want, that extra layer of like input and support. And then others are just going to want to be like, hey, like I know what I'm doing. So it's give and take. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer with this. I think it depends on the talent. It depends on the company. It depends on the situation. But we'll see what happens there. I mean, look, obviously Ethan Page is in NXT, and he is doing some spectacular stuff. I thought his match with Trick Williams at the last NXT pay-per-view was really good, and I think there's more good to come. I think he's going to be a guy who, like, they should think about putting the belt on. Like, he could be the face of NXT, and I think if he goes to the main roster, like, sky's the limit for this guy. I know, like, that doesn't seem like it's the case, but Ethan Page is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the world, and I think he's got a lot to prove as he moves forward in his journey in WWE. But let's move forward now in this video and talk about a WWE Hall of Famer who looks to be making her return in Toronto ahead of Money in the Bank. Trish Stratus, it was announced, would be hosting Money in the Bank 2024. It, of course, is live from her home city of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Trish Stratus has not really been seen since, I believe, last year, and it was that big match she had with Becky Lynch that closed out their feud, and she had like a little bit of a run there. She came in, did that feud, had a couple of really like high profile matches. I think that steel cage match she had with Becky Lynch was one of the matches of the year, honestly. And as we move forward, I mean, a lot of people are asking, is this Trish like coming in to do, one spot? They're in Toronto or whatever, and they want to have the hometown hero come in, do something cool, and get the crowd excited. Or is this, indicative of maybe another like feud or another run? We don't know. Let's be honest, we don't know. I lean towards like the former. I think like this is just like, hey, look. It's Toronto. It's her hometown. Let's get the fans excited. Let's get them like hyped up and like, it's Trish Stratus, Hall of Famer, one of the most, recognizable and beloved acts of the 2000s. I don't think this is like a missable situation for WWE. That being said, there could be potential for laying the foundation for a feud, because one thing that we do know is Trish Stratus has still got it. She's still got it as far as a wrestler and that charisma and that persona. Like, she's got oodles of it, like, just all the time. And I think that if the story is there and the story is right, I think she could come back at any time. Like, as we know in wrestling in 2024, age is but a number. Trish is like, 47, 48, does not matter. Like, we have Edge, Adam Copeland, who's nearly 50, and he was the TNT champion. You have Christian Cage, who's like the best heel in wrestling right now, who's right around 50. I mean, like, it does not matter. As long as you fit the part, I think that's all that matters. And we know Trish Stratus can do that. And don't be surprised. That's all I'm going to say. Do not be surprised if maybe we plant the seeds for something here, for something a little bit more long-term. Because there's one thing that WWE likes right now. It's, hey, we'll lean into the nostalgia when we need to, because we know it works. And we know that we have that to work with. Like, that's why The Rock coming back was so successful. It's because he's a very recognizable face. And, that nostalgia is real. But you have to be able to mix it in the right way. And I think under Triple H, WWE have done that perfectly. It is like the complete opposite of the Vince McMahon era, where, the nostalgia acts would come in, bury the young guys or young girls, whatever, and that would be the end of it. But I think here it's a little bit more of like, let's get the younger, more like less established, or in this case, like the current stars, let's get them the rub here, like, and give these people real dream matches they want to see. So we'll see what happens with Trish Stratus. Obviously, Money in the Bank in Toronto, her hometown, as I've said before. Let me know in the comment section who you would like to see Trish Stratus face. What do you think about Ethan Page's comment? I want to hear from all of you in the comment section. Also, be sure, if you haven't already done so, to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.